What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Game Time Pod. Just got done talking to Bill over at Cascade Hoops Talk. It is great to have our first guest on the podcast, and we've got more guests coming up. Not going to give any names because obviously, things could change. It may not happen the day we got planned, but we do got more guests lined up in the future for the Game Time Pod. It's just me, Daryl, and Ramon now, and we are talking NBA. But before we get into the playoffs, I do want to bring up an interaction that me and Daryl had on X. It happened on yesterday, so I put out a tweet. Some of it was serious, others of it were not. I said, so if Haliburton wins a ring, he's the greatest Pacer of all time, right? And then I said, if Siakam wins, is he a top 5 Pacer, maybe even top 10 power forward? Because he'd have 2 well-earned rings at that point. I'm going to go ahead and let Daryl get his opinion in. Ramon, if you have an opinion about it as well. I am of the belief if the Pacers win this ring, I would put Haliburton at 1. I would put Reggie at 2. I don't know if I put Paul George at 3. I would have to do more research. You could put some names above him that I'm probably just blanking out right now. If Daryl says a name, Daryl's probably going to say a name and I'm going to be like, yeah, he's definitely over him. Off the top of my head, that's what I was thinking. But I definitely want to hear what Daryl has to say and what would it take for Tyrese to be number 1? And then Ramon, obviously, you can give your thoughts.
Well, first and foremost, we gotta separate, right? We have these eras. So are we talking, when you said greatest Pacer, Indiana Pacer from 1967 to now, or are you talking now back to 1990 to then 1967 to 1990? I want you to clarify that first before I go in.
Okay, so let's just do the 90s up to now. So 1990.
Okay, 90s up to now.
I mean, and then we can throw in, because I know there's probably an ABA player. There's probably an ABA player that deserves to be in the top 5, but like I said, I don't know that ABA championship team that well.
Well, so if we're talking 1990 to present, right? So let's do the line of demarcation. 87, that was the year Reggie Miller was drafted, and then go forward from there. That makes it an easier line, right? So from me as a Indiana Pacer, if Tyrese Haliburton and the Indiana Pacers win the NBA title, that doesn't dictate that Tyrese is the greatest Pacer from that era. That moniker still belongs to Reggie Miller, not because of his three-point shooting prowess, but because of his longevity and what he did, not just for the Indiana Pacers, for the city of Indianapolis and the community as a whole, right? This guy could have had an opportunity to walk after year 8, after year 12, even after year 6, but he stayed, right? And he became, what's synonymous with what the grit and the scrappiness and the coming back as the Pacers. So Tyrese is going to have to do better than one title for me to say that he's the greatest Pacer from 87 to present, right? I think if he did win a title and he continues on this pathway, he has an opportunity to overtake Reggie Miller in that case. However, it's a long way to go before that happens. So I'm going to pump my brakes. But I would say right now, if he wins the title, he's behind Reggie, but right behind Reggie. The others were brought in via trade, middle part of their career, maybe latter parts of their career, the Derek McKees of the world, or the Eddie Johnsons of the world, the Mark Jacksons of the world. Even your guy, Jermaine O'Neal, brought in as a trade. So I would say right now, Tyrese would be right behind Reggie Miller if he won a title along with the Pacers this season.
So what is your top 5 as it stands right now? Because you're the Pacer fan. I'm a Pacer fan, man. But give me your top 5 because I'm curious because even Jason yesterday he said, "Is Mark Jackson in the top 5?" And I was like, "Well, no." I said no, but I'm like maybe he is. Like I said, I don't know. So give me your top 5 as it stands right now.
So my top 5, and I'm not going to put them in necessarily chronological order, but just top 5. I'm going to start with Big Mac, George McGinnis. I'm gonna give you Mel Daniels. I'm gonna give you Freddie Lewis. I'm gonna give you Roger Brown. These are Hall of Fame players we're just talking about, right? Mm-hmm. These aren't just guys. Then I'm gonna give you, of course, I'll give you Reggie Miller. So I just named 5 guys I think that are Hall of Fame players, NBA Hall of Fame, basketball Hall of Fame because it's not an NBA Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
I just named those guys. So and didn't name Tyrese. didn't name Mark Jackson, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are my guys off the top. Then there's the second tier guys, right? You're talking about the guys that brought it, right? Guys like Billy Knight from the University of Pittsburgh, BK as they called him. You're talking about a guy like Chuck Person, who was a Rookie of the Year, who fought his fight long for the Pacers. Then you're talking about Jermaine O'Neal's of the world. You're talking about Mark Jackson's of the world. That maybe that third tier of Pacer. Yeah, you could throw in Paul George for a couple seasons, but I'm sorry, Paul George wouldn't crack my top 15 from an all-time Pacer just from that perspective. So I just named those guys. I blended some NBA, I blended some ABA as well.
Ramon, I want to give you a chance to speak on that as well, and then I do want to bring up Pascal Siakam, not for Pacer talk, but an all-time talk and from a power forward standpoint. Just here in just a second, just to get your guys' thoughts. Ramon, go ahead though.
Camera on me? I bet. If he wins a championship, is he the best Pacer of all time? And the answer is hell no. Hell no. Make sure we get that. And this is the reason why. As of today, I think Tyrese has played 333 games in the NBA, right? Reggie Miller played 1,389 games. And their numbers are exactly the same. I played 1,000 more games than you, son. And your numbers ain't better than mine in your short stint in the NBA. You gonna have to do this longer. That championship ain't gonna get it because you won a championship, yeah. But I had this cat named Black Jesus, Black Cat in the league, who stopped a lot of us from winning championships. So we can only look at numbers because you ain't got nobody like that in the league that's stopping boys from the whole NBA from winning, from eating. So I gotta go by the numbers and longevity. And he ain't got none of them. His numbers ain't overly better, and he ain't played long enough. So we can't put that on one thing, championship, because it's for the players and 7 other people on the bench and different coaches and different era and climate. So I can't say that. Only thing I can go by is them raw numbers and longevity. One play, 1,000 more games. Reggie averaged 1 more point. Rebounds are about the same. Hallie got better assists. Reggie and both of their field goal percentages are about the same. 3-pointers about the same. Free throws about the same. Effective field goals about the same. Per is about the same. Everything is the same. And I played 1,300 games and you played 300. So I averaged the same amount as you in my peak and my valley. Comes out to all nothing but your peak or your youth.
Yeah. Let
me see what you're going to do in the last 5-10 years when your career starts going down and see if those numbers change.
Interesting. I do want to talk about Pascal Siakam, and that'll kind of lead us into Pacers and Knicks because what a performance he had in Game 3. And I uploaded the clip. I was right on the money, Darryl, when we talked about it. I said Siakam's going to have to play. He's going to have to play better, and play better he did. He came out with a vengeance. If Pascal Siakam and the Pacers win, it'll be his second championship in his career, both that I think are well-earned. The Toronto one, he was the second option on that team with Kawhi Leonard in 2019. And then obviously he's definitely the second option here most of the night. Sometimes he's the third option, but Pascal having 2 rings, right? Maybe not a top 10 power forward. I was probably stretching it there. But when you look at Pascal, and Barkley said it on Inside the NBA, probably the most underrated player in the league. When you look at power forwards in the league right now and all time, where should Siakam be in those conversations? Because I don't think Siakam is looked at enough, and I don't think he's talked about enough for the way he plays the game. Because, I mean, if he gets this second ring, I mean, 2 rings, he's always been a consistent scorer. Obviously, there's not a lot of accolades to go along with it. I know we say championships is hard to value, right, when you're comparing it to other players, but I think you have to take into account, if he gets this second one, how well-earned those titles are and the impact he brought to both of those teams.
What I think is this, when we talk about, is Pascal underrated or overrated? I don't like that talk anyway, because that's usually a fan driven thing, right? Yeah, there are some times where players get involved in it, but those who follow basketball realize the player that Pascal Siakam is, and he has been. The miss I had on Pascal, I thought when he first came on board, I was thinking more along the lines of a KD, right? Because their body types are very similar. But I was thinking he was going to be a guy that was more of an outside in guy. Pascal plays a lot in the post. Yeah, he can hit the three, but he plays a lot in the post, and that really surprised me from that perspective of Pascal Siakam. But yeah, I mean, I think you got to let the dust settle on a lot of these things, because there's a lot of basketball left to be played, not just in this series, but in their careers. But the other thing is you got to pay attention to what's happened before, right? So does Pascal get an underrated moniker? Yeah, I can see how that could happen. But man, if you watch that guy play, he's been steady as she goes, and I would call him right now, outside of the top 15 top players in the league. I'd say he's between 20 and 35. I'm talking about in the league itself as it stands right now. But that's no knock. You're talking about 450 players, and you say, hey, you're a top 35 guy that's current. That's not too bad. So I like that. And I like those guys staying under the radar as well. You don't have to beat yourself on the chest for everybody to know where you are. Just go out there and ball. And that's what they've been doing, especially Tyrese Haliburton and Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, the Pacers are on a roll. And I think you bring a good point. The real fans will know who Pascal Siakam is. And I think that goes with the same thing along with the NBA Finals. There's been a lot of discourse about the finals and, Indiana and Oklahoma City, why that's not a marketable finals, this and that. It would be a great finals. It'd probably be the best scenario for these finals. From the league standpoint, they probably want Ant in New York, right? Because Ant's more polarizing, and then New York is New York. But when you look at both of these teams, right, you could say the Pacers are the best offensive team in the league. I think statistically this year they're not first like last year. I think they're like second or third. I don't remember for sure. But Oklahoma City statistically is the best defense. The story writes itself if these two teams meet up in the finals. The best offense versus the best defense. And then you obviously have Oklahoma City. That's a good offense. And then you have Indiana, who we've given credit to on this podcast, has become a better defense. I think that is the best finals matchup, and not from a Pacers standpoint or somebody that roots for the Pacers, because if I had to pick the second finals matchup that I want, it's probably Minnesota and Indiana, and then after that, probably OKC and New York. I think Minnesota and New York wouldn't be enjoyable to watch. If it was me, I think New York would win that series pretty handedly, in my opinion. What are you guys thinking about the finals? Obviously, like I just said, the discourse surrounding the finals is people that are just casual saying, "Oh, Indiana and Oklahoma City." But from a lineup to matchup perspective, what finals matchup intrigues you guys the most? Taking away the Pacer bias, Daryl, that me and you have, what are you guys interested in seeing the most out of the finals matchup out of these four teams that we have left?
Go ahead and drop your dime, Ramon. What do you think, man?
I would like to see the Pacers and OKC.
Yep.
I think that'll be, for pure basketball, that's the best basketball game. It's going to be played the right way. It's going to be aesthetically beautiful. It's going to be traditionally beautiful. It's going to be fundamentally beautiful.
Well coached.
But it won't be exciting for the media, the common fan, for the content providers.
They call them the casuals now, right? Is that what they call them now?
That's the
new hit word, right?
Yeah, the casual. It won't be great for the content providers, but it'll be the best basketball possible. Now, for all the other stuff, New York, the media, the big market versus Ant-Man, the savior,
yes,
the new savior of basketball, is what everyone really wants to see, because that's the narrative that's pushed. This is what we want to see, but this is not that won't be the best basketball to view. What I think will be a terrible final is New York
in Oklahoma.
versus in Oklahoma.
Yes.
I think that would be bad. I don't think that. I think that'll end up being a 4-1, 4-0 game, and it just wouldn't be very good.
No, I agree with you. I think Indiana, Oklahoma City makes the best sense. Because I think, and I agree with a lot of the discourse online that the Eastern Conference final games have just been way better than the Western Conference finals games. And I think obviously the games being close matter to that as well. If you got, I obviously we've all been watching the games. I can't really describe why I've enjoyed the East better. Obviously, the closer games have been the reason, but it does feel like on the West side of things, something is lacking. And I think someone made a good point is I think you got to look at the broadcasts on both sides. ESPN's broadcasts of the playoffs this year has not been good. I flat out has not been good. And I think one of those is who they have Mike Breen next to. I love Richard Jefferson. It's not working for me. Same thing with Doris Burke. I think Doris Burke is better as a courtside reporter. I miss Mark Jackson and I miss Jeff Van Gundy, right? I think that was the best triple threat that ESPN had for their broadcasts. And I just think something is missing from those broadcasts because when you look on the TNT side of things, Daryl, me and you have given TNT a lot of crap with the way they've covered the game in some points. But the presentation when you're comparing conference finals to conference finals has been night and day. I know you listen to Mark Doyle, you listen to the Pacers radio when you watch them. So from my perspective, TNT has been better than ESPN far and away. And obviously as a broadcaster, I try to leave the audio on to kind of, especially Mike Green and Kevin Harlan. Both are really good at what they do. So I try to take notes when I can. But on the TNT side of things, their the analysts that they have next to Kevin Harlan are way better than what Mike Breen has on ESPN right now. And I think that's making a difference as to why one broadcast is better than the other, not the game itself, because we can compare Brunson and Shane about getting to the free throw line. That doesn't really matter. I think it's the quality of the broadcast that are making one conference finals look better than the other.
I would agree that to a point, right? But I also think that Kevin Harlan is incrementally better than Mike Breen.
I agree.
From because he's done football as well, right? Mm-hmm. So he's got that tie-in, and Kevin Harlan has a flair for the timeliness, the fun. It doesn't have to be an uptight feel. So when I watch ESPN's broadcast, because obviously Pacers and Knicks aren't on ESPN. Yeah, I listen a little bit. I can't take much of Doris Burke, just to be quite frank about it.
I can't.
So I don't listen to a lot of it. But Mike Breen's he's a pro's pro, and I give him his due. But again, he's just not as colorful as the TNT broadcast. So and that's okay. But you've got to have something that comes back with that. That's why I think you say having Mark Jackson and Van Gundy would be beneficial to Breen. Because they bring that color that he lacks, right?
Yes.
And I'm not a broadcast expert, but I've watched enough, and I understand that you've got to have some yin and yang, right?
Yep.
It's just like this. It's just like Game Time Podcast.
Yep.
We all have a little something, right? So if all of us were agreeing on everything, how boring would that be, right? So we've got some color.
I got a lot of something, man. Don't shortchange me. I got a lot of something.
That's exactly my point. Exactly. We all bring it, right? So, I think from my perspective, I like the TNT group. Granted, I haven't listened to 1 second. While the Pacers are playing, I'm not listening to them. I'm listening to the best radio guy in the NBA. His name is Mark Boyle. ESPN 1070 The Fan, 107.5 The Fan. For me, he gives a level of balance. He paints a picture for you, and he's not biased. So that's my take on the broadcast piece.
Ramon, what are your thoughts overall? What about the conference finals? What's made the East better than the West? Obviously, the close games is something to do with it, and then obviously we brought up the broadcast part. You can bounce off of that, or do you have your own opinion on that as well?
I think what's making the East better than the West, as far as like how it's broadcast, how it's presented to us, is that there is no one in the East that is a darling. So they just play basketball and they announce it or they talk about it or they speak on it, whether it's the talking heads on ESPN or They're talking pure basketball because there's no darling over there. Like the Boston Celtics, the defending champions, they weren't darlings.
No.
So they didn't, but over in the West, you got Joker, who's an MVP, and you got my man OKC, SGA, who just won an MVP. But they wanted to push LeBron and Ant for the most part. That's all you heard about.
And
so you're not really
go ahead.
You're not really getting basketball. You're getting entertainment. And so the basketball heads ain't gonna like that. We're gonna be like, man, we just want basketball. Now we respect what Ant does and respect what LeBron has done over the lifetime of his career because there's nothing short of outstanding. But we want to talk basketball right now, just basketball. And one side they're doing it, and one side is about the entertainment and marketing. And I can't fault them because you know what? That's how they feed their family. That's how the networks make the money. That's how you build the brand. They got to do it, but I can choose, and I'm going to choose to listen to the basketball talk, the pure basketball talk. That's why I like the Game Time podcast.
It's sports over entertainment, right? And I like I said, I think I've done a couple comparisons to racing on this podcast, right? So I'm gonna make another comparison right now. You have F1 and you have NASCAR, right? F1, they make the sport seem like a sport, right? They value the sports side of their racing. F1 does it. NASCAR, on the other hand, they focus more on the entertainment, right? On the entertainment side of things, not the racing. And in turn, they've seen their ratings drop. The real racing fans have left the sport and have tried out IndyCar and they've tried out F1. Like literally today, it's the greatest day in racing. You got Monaco, Indy 500, Coke 600. And I'm telling you right now, everyone's going to watch the first two and then maybe tune into the second one because Kyle Larson is doing the Indy 500, Coke 600 double. And I think it's the same thing with the NBA, right? ESPN's focused on the entertainment value. They're focused on the stars, the big names, where TNT is focusing on the basketball, the pure hoop junkies. That's what they're focused on. And I think that's what basketball should be, right? I think what LeBron and Redick had going, and I think now it's LeBron and Steve Nash, I think Mind the Game's a great podcast because they're just talking basketball. They're talking hoops. If you love basketball and you love getting into the details of things, I think it's a great podcast to listen. And obviously we're a great podcast to listen to as well because we're just talking pure hoops. And I think that's what basketball needs more of is just talking hoops and not the entertainment side of things. And I think ESPN's going to have to really step up their game because I think NBC is going to come in, NBC and Amazon, they're going to slot right in and take over for TNT. And I think they're going to be much better. Now, Inside the NBA is getting moved to ESPN next year, but I wonder how much of it is going to be changed up now that they're on ESPN, but we'll have to wait and see. If you guys want to add anything onto that, we can. I do want to kind of talk about the series as a whole, what you guys are thinking of, just some extra tidbits. We've got plenty of time left in this segment as well. So if you guys want to add anything there, we can also add WNBA talk a little bit too. If you want, up to you guys.
Well, for me, I'll hit the broadcast piece. I don't know how the TNT blend with ESPN is going to work out. You got to have, if you're going to be on television, you got to have, it's great to talk basketball, but also you want to be able to have people that are relatable. Yeah. And what's happening for me is I'm starting to see, and more people are starting to see, hey, you take this side, you take this side, even if you don't believe it, let's just argue about it because there are sides. But that's what this dynamic and what we kind of becoming are the take a side, right? If you don't take a side, you're wrong. How about if you agree with both sides and things work pretty well? There's nothing wrong with that either, but it has to be organic. It can't come off as
manufactured,
like the Gilbert Arenas thing. There's clips of him 3 years ago saying, he felt, LeBron was overrated, yada yada yada. Now he's flipped and says he's greatest of all time. He's this. It's clearly the money, right? He's on the ESPN thing. That's not organic, and people don't respect that. What they're placating to are the casuals that we talked about, those who don't watch, and they're like, "Let's see, this guy said this, so it must be true." Let's pump our brakes on that. So for me, I'll wait and see what it looks like. But I like a little bit of entertainment myself. But I can separate the old, as my dad used to say, shit from Shinola. I can separate that. So I don't need someone helping me with it. I can figure it out on my own. So that's just my perspective on it.
Ramon, anything you want to add?
Yeah. You know what? I've been thinking in the last minute and a half. All right. We're going all entertainment, man. We need the clicks. We need the viewers. We need the followers. So whatever y'all want to hear, slide in my DM. Tell me. I will entertain everybody so we can get more people to watch and we can get some ad dollars and some sponsors. So if you want me to say LeBron is the king, queen, and the heir to the throne, Bronny bow down to the Bronster. Shador can throw touchdowns with both hands. Man, I'm going to say it all to entertain you because it's all about the dollar, cream, cash rules, everything around me. Forget the sport. There's a new sport. It's called getting the bag. All right. And so that's what we're going to participate in. I'm going to be MVP, most valuable bag getter. Come on, man. We trying to get that dough, get that money.
And just like that, 8 episodes in, and we are changing course.
We're fighting for the bag already.
No, you know what? And honestly, when I put out that Pacers tweet, I got the Haliburton part. I believe with the way he's going, I think he will be the best Pacer of all time. The Siakam part was a bit of a stretch. The top 5 Pacer thing, that was a bit of a stretch, obviously. But I am serious about Siakam in those top 10 power forward conversations, maybe even top 5 in the league right now. I definitely meant that. But yeah, some of that was definitely so we could bring it up on the pod, have something extra to talk about because obviously we only had one game played on both sides for the conference finals. So I thought that would be fun to discuss. But I agree. I think you got to balance entertainment and sports, right? It's finding that balance that I think a lot of these sports leagues are not doing a good job of. I brought up NASCAR. They're not doing a good job of it. You bring up ESPN on the ESPN's NBA coverage, not doing the best side of things. Honestly, you could look at the NFL and say Fox doesn't do the best job, but it's not as bad it's not that bad. It's better than what the NBA is doing on ESPN. You could say the NFL on both sides has a pretty good balance of the way they cover the game. But I agree. It's got to be a balance of sports and entertainment. I think that's why the NBA has so much problems with the All-Star game because there's just so much entertainment and not enough sports where it's like, do we really need the All-Star game at this point? Do we just call people, do we just give them that All-Star title and just do away with All-Star Weekend? Because at that point, I feel like that's where we're at, where, we have these highlights at All-Star Weekend, but, I mean, it's just for clicks, and that's about it. The internet, it goes by after 24 hours, and nobody cares about it anymore. If it were me, I would do away with All-Star Weekend and try to find something else to do. If you ask me, they should go away with that and really hammer on the in-season tournament. I know the tournament saw its ratings do better the first year, probably because the Lakers were in, and then they barely promoted when it was the Bucks and the Thunder. But I think the in-season tournament should be more of a focus for the NBA going forward rather than All-Star Weekend. I think the in-season tournament could be so much better for the NBA from a marketing standpoint or just anything like that. I think it would be way better for the teams. But don't go full entertainment, right? Don't make this where the winner gets a guaranteed playoff spot. You can maybe do that, but I think that's pushing that line of entertainment and sport.
I'd agree with that. Let's be careful, right? Because the play-in tournament, I didn't like it in the beginning. I felt like it was.
No, I'm talking about the in-season tournament. Not the play-in.
I'm sorry.
No, you're all good. I don't like the play-in.
In season.
I don't like the play-in.
But I meant in season. That's what I meant. In the in season, it looked like a gadget, right? Pacers were in the first, them and the Lakers. Second season, like you said, the ratings have dropped a little bit. I'm a little less, dismissive of it now than I was in the beginning for the in-season tournament and see how it goes. And maybe you can branch out to that. But I would definitely pause in saying, let's whoever wins that gets a guaranteed place in the playoffs. I'll be careful of that because you remember in-season tournament is around December.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got 4 more months to go. So I like what's going on right now. To slowly bring it on. Don't try to make these humongous changes. to your point about the All-Star game, yeah, that's a break for everybody though. That's an All-Star break weekend. So
they can still do the break, but I don't know if you need anything to happen because at this point,
but it's marketing, it's money.
Yeah,
you know how much
I guess.
money it brings to those cities, and the NBA has proven they're not turning down any dollar. So I would think it's going to continue. But all I would say is this: we talked about it on the podcast before. We talked about all these changes that need to be made and these gadgets versus U.S. versus the world. No, the guys have to play hard. If they played hard, we wouldn't even be talking about it.
Yep.
Because it's a sham. It's a sham. Guys are walking down and, hey, let this guy bounce the ball off the floor and see how high he can jump to dunk it. That's not basketball, right? And everybody doesn't love that. So just ask the players, if you are a candidate for the All-Star team and you accept your bid, what you also accept is to play hard, right? Mm-hmm. This is not the Globetrotters and the Washington Generals, okay? Geese Osby is not coming through there with a bucket full of feathers. Google that, Isaiah, don't worry. And so it's not going to happen. So you got to make sure these guys just playing ball.
Yeah.
And if they played ball, we wouldn't even be having a conversation because there were no conversations about the All-Star game being a farce until about 2006. Just wasn't.
Yeah.
You know what I would like to see?
That's my take on the All-Star team, on All-Star game.
I would like to see y'all about to laugh. I would like to see the in-season tournament, but you can't play with none of your stars. They take vacation. All the 6, 7, 8 men, you can pull up 2 from the G League and let them go hard for like 3-4 weeks.
I don't know about that.
Ratings would suck, but we would see some crazy basketball.
Norman Powell would be the greatest player on the world for about 4 weeks. Guys will be trying
to get jobs, man. It'd be a live audition. Look, we about to put you on TNT and ABC and whatever, and you're gonna get 3 weeks to shine. Let's see what you got.
That I don't know about that one, but it may could be something.
It's not gonna make money. It's not gonna get ratings. Look, and all you guys who want to do this low management, here's your 3 weeks off.
Here's your 3. There's your 3 weeks.
Here's your 3 weeks off. Now you better play the rest of the year.
So we've got
give you 3-year vacation.
We've actually got under 2 minutes left here in the segment. I am gonna wait for Daryl to get back, but overall, I do want to give some final thoughts here. I want to give one more thanks to Bill for joining us, Cascade Hoops. I want to give him a big thank you for coming on to the pod. And I also want to remind you guys, the Game Time podcast is now available on Spotify and YouTube Music. The episodes that are up on Spotify are the last 2 episodes that are up on the YouTube. So those videos are the Pacers-Knicks preview from yesterday, and then the Game Time Extra going over the conference finals on Friday. That's when we had Darren in of replace for Ramon. But we can't replace Ramon's comedy, so we had to bring Ramon immediately back in to get him on. But it's I appreciate all the love. We are seeing some massive growth on YouTube, TikTok. I appreciate all the love. Ramon, is there anything you want to say regarding the pod and just how you feel overall? We're coming up on our 10th episode here soon.
Yeah, y'all try to get rid of me, man.
No, never.
Nah, hey, I'm gonna tell you this. Isaiah has made it clear. He's, hey man, hey, I know that Ramon's got his busyness with his schedule and all, but look, man, hey, we gotta make this happen. So we gotta flex because we know the season comes up and everything like that. We get it. We're gonna flex. No, this is the Brew Crew right here.
Yeah, Ramon, you're not getting replaced. I told Daryl that very early on. I'm like, look, he's got to be a head coach. It's fine. He can pop in whenever.
Try to replace me, man.
Nah, never ever, never ever.
Yeah, me at home singing love songs, man.
But fellas, that is gonna do it.